The NBA Finals is tied at 2 apiece. How did Oklahoma City get it done? You're going to find out right now on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
You are locked on to NBA Game Night. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm the co-host of the Locked On Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank all of you for being an everydayer and making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. And joining me today, filling in for Rylan Stiles, because he's a little bit busy over at Locked On Thunder right now. It's Matt Moore, the fantastic co-host of the Locked On Nuggets podcast. Matt, how are you surviving this small market final that everyone seemingly hated coming in, and yet I think has been pretty awesome so far?
I mean, this is my dream. This is my dream, is like two small markets that both coasts despise, and being able to enjoy just the great basketball instead of dumb storylines. It's absolutely amazing.
It's been great. I'm with you. Even as someone who's currently in New York, I would agree with everything you just said. On that happy note, we want to remind everyone that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, on today's show, we're going to look back on Game 4. We're going to look ahead to Game 5. We're going to play some buy or sell within this series, talking about Chet Holmgren and JDub's future on the Thunder, whether they could both be top 10 players down the road. Just how many championships will this Thunder core win together? And then some buy or sell league-wide, including an extension for Steven Adams. That's interesting for a number of reasons. We're going to get into all of that today on Locked On NBA Game Night. Matt, only one place we can start. Obviously, anyone who tuned in got the full recap last night, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. How did the Thunder ultimately take Game 4 when Indiana seemingly got the better of them for the first 42 minutes or so?
What I really liked about this win for the Thunder was I felt like it was not their usual identity. They weren't like forcing tons of turnovers, and it wasn't, spreading the ball around to the 3-point shooters. It was, Shai doing his thing is very within line of like how they do these things, but they just had to play sound defense. Like they just had to contest shots, and going to a switch all defense, I thought was really smart by Mark Daigneault after he, for the last 2 games, has been like, hey, let's play a drop versus Tyrese Haliburton. That should go well. And I was screaming, why would you do this? So them going to the switch late with Chet Holmgren, I thought was a very smart and do move that really helped, I think, stagnate that Pacers offense. And OKC dug, and I thought found one more gear, right? They wore out in Game 3, but in Game 4, the Pacers at the end of it looked a little bit just like standing around, not as engaged. They weren't getting into Pacers basketball. And it's so much of this is how much intensity, how much physicality are you bringing into every possession? Because both these teams are throwing haymakers at each other consistently. It was a must-win spot, obviously, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and their ability, I thought, to adapt and play a little bit outside their comfort zone, getting offensive rebounds and things like that, was the most impressive part of it to me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I thought I could see coming out of that game being incredibly frustrated as a Pacers fan, because I thought over the first 40 minutes or so, they did such a good job generally within that blender. Like almost my biggest takeaway for the game was just Pascal Siakam as a connector, like so often through the first 3 quarters, like him on the short roll was just involved in assist after assist, like driving and spraying to Nembhard to create a 3, like short roll, like he had a spinning pass to Obi Toppin in the corner for a 3, like another drive where he drew 2 and hit Obi for a dunk. In this game, became the 9th player in finals history with at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals in the game. Obviously, Obi was incredible, both as a cutter and a shooter. Hurt my Knicks loving heart. Mathurin had some nice moments defensively, like Myles Turner. We can talk about the kind of series he's had, and we're going to. I thought his ability at times to just be a connective passer, had a really nice putback over iHeart at one point. And Haliburton, to your point, like taking on that challenge and saying, all right, that's how you're going to guard me. And through 3 quarters, and even at times in the 4th, like his ability to like get to the rim, to play with like this humming pace, and like occasionally got like a little stagnant and then just shoots by you, creative finishing. Like he was, I thought, really, really good, saying, this is what you're going to give me. I'm going to take it. And yet, to your point, Oklahoma City, just too much down the stretch. I thought JDub in particular, like his ability to just over and over again get to the rim, and the Thunder, I mean, both him and Shai, their ability to attack Aaron Nesmith down the stretch was just essential. And Nesmith, an excellent defender, just a little bit too foul prone when compared to Andrew Nembhard, who was so incredibly disciplined. And even though Shai had 22 points heading into that final fourth quarter onslaught, I thought he did about as good as you can. Shai had 0 assists in this game with 3.5 minutes left, which was pretty telling about how well they defended him until it was just too much at the end of this one. This is something you told me you were intrigued about coming into this pod, so we can just get right to it. What did you think about Oklahoma City starting and finishing double big, and how that affected the game for them?
I thought it was a really smart adjustment by Daigneault in terms of getting away from the adjustment he unnecessarily made to start the series. So, one of the things that he was trying to do, apparently, he threw out the small ball lineup to counter the Pacers starting lineup, which had the best net rating of any starting unit in the playoffs coming in, plus 16.4. And it worked because if you look at it, if you break it down, the Pacers starting unit has not been great. When they've had Turner, Halliburton, and Siakam on the floor, they've lost their minutes across the series. The problem is they were losing all the subsequent ones. They were losing all of these like different lineups throughout the game because they were starting off small and then going big later. And so by switching that and going back the other way, it enabled them to win. Like they were down to start the game and they lost the minutes to the starters. The best lineup for the Pacers last night was their starting unit, but they lost all these other deviations, all these stagger lineups across it. And to me, that's a much better pathway, I think, for the Thunder. I thought Daigneault outthought himself, like overthought the change, the starting lineup coming into game one. I thought last night was a good game script for them, despite them trailing at the end of 3.
Yeah, I'm with you, and it was also interesting to see him. Doris Burke had the stat that Shai had played every minute in the last 9 first quarters for the Thunder. They take him out 7 minutes in. Like it would be wrong, I think, to attribute that directly to his fourth quarter success, but obviously did not hurt him to be a little bit fresher down the stretch. This one, I thought Cambridge Williams gave them some nice minutes. Someone who didn't play, at least I think in game 1 and game 2, did not really see substantial minutes. His ability to just run the floor, crash the glass, had like a nice short roll dish to Caruso for a layup, like gave them just a little bump leaning back into that depth. Isaiah Joe got picked on by TJ McConnell. That didn't go as well, but it felt, to your point, just like a little bit more similar to the script that got the Thunder 68 wins this season, an all-time dominant regular season. This is something we could take into segment 2, but I don't know how much you have on it. But what are your key adjustments for both teams as we head into game 5? Because obviously it's most likely going to define the series.
Yeah, with them going to more switch, I'll be curious to see because Dags knows that he can't show Halliburton the same thing over and over again. So if they play that drop coverage, being ready to attack that, get downhill for Halliburton and be a scorer in that capacity. I think, Mathurin, it's not surprising that Mathurin had kind of a comeback to earth game after having been so great in game 3. The real crucial, I think, component is that the Thunder have been absolutely just incredible in these third quarters of home games, especially in this game 5 spot. So they've got to really they need to come out at halftime with as many adjustments as possible to what OKC shows as their game plan in the first half of game 5. If they can come out and they win that third quarter, that's going to give them a chance to steal this and then have a chance to close the series at home. But, going into this game, it's definitely a Thunder spot. The momentum stuff, I think, is a little overrated a lot of the time, especially with this Pacers team. But I just think more from series script, this feels like, all right, OKC's going to get this one. The Pacers will adjust in game 6 and get that one. And then we'll head to a 7th game and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think I have the same instinct. My gut feeling, and maybe this isn't particularly bold because it's mostly what we've seen with Oklahoma City at home, is that Oklahoma City will get a pretty comfortable win in game 5. And it's not like, obviously, if you're Indiana, right? Like it's 2 games to win 3 for glory. Like you are not saving any bullets, but like I'm curious what kind of punch they can land early in this game, and to your point, sustain into the second half. Because Oklahoma City, like you know it better than me, coasting Locked On Nuggets, have just been like this incredibly dominant team for the most part at home in the playoffs, and like games 1 and 2, outside of whatever it was, like final 8 minutes of the fourth quarter of game 1, like they have just owned Indiana in that arena. I'm like curious just mentally, because to your point, this Indiana team is so incredibly resilient and just does not really seem to get phased. Like there's like a certain emotional lightness there where like they're just unbothered seemingly by any specific circumstance in a game, any specific circumstance in a series. But I'm interested to see if that breaks it all, because that's sort of what Oklahoma City does, right? Over the course of a series, they tend to break things. Does that happen to Indiana in game 5?
I think Indiana's better suited to kind of withstand what the Thunder are throwing at them.
Mm.
I think OKC being so good at home is a tough one here. A lot of it is that this hasn't been a series that's like simple to describe. It's not just like Halliburton's been great or Shea's been dominant or the role players have hit threes even. It's not even that. So I think with it being every game seems to be its own thing. One thing I will say that's going to be a big factor is like Myles Turner is going to have to find a way to impact the series. He's been rough. He's had a really hard time. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. But if they're going to win, I think they need a good Turner game on the road in particular in order to balance out what they're going to get from OKC's role players.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm curious. You mentioned it, but I want to see how they cover Halliburton. Caitlin Cooper had a stat before the Knicks series. She does an incredible job covering the Pacers. That when you blitz Tyrese Halliburton, the points per possession exceeds the best pick and roll offense in the NBA. And Oklahoma City was trying a little bit of that early in this game with mixed success. To your point, like they tried switching Chet a little more. I actually think like even though it wasn't done in high volume earlier in the series, I kind of think Halliburton did almost a better job against that. I was trying to track it throughout. I think he was something like his first time he missed a sidestep three, second time blew by him late shot clock for a lay, third time Chet, well, this wasn't on a switch. Chet was in drop late in the third quarter or maybe early fourth quarter. He beat him for a high arcing righty layup. There was a dribble handoff where Chet switched and drew a foul, and then Chet got that stop on him late. I'm with you. I love when Oklahoma City does that. I think Chet is more than capable of sticking with him. And you are almost daring Halliburton to be a little bit more of a scorer than he's comfortable with. Take Indiana out of that rhythm. I want to see how that battle continues to play out, because Indiana, and this is a credit to Oklahoma City, and you can listen to Tony East over on Locked On Pacers talk about this. Like in the last 2 minutes, they did not really play Pacers basketball, and it hurt them. And obviously it is an incredible challenge to do that against this defense and just in general to do that in the last 2 minutes of a high stakes basketball game, to play with that kind of verve, that kind of movement, and just maintain how you played through the first 46 minutes. But I want to see how that battle goes the rest of the series. Game 5 is going to be incredibly exciting. We're going to talk about the series a little bit more abstract. We're going to play some buy or sell coming up next here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Olipop. Olipop is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that supports their health, which is 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar. You're going to find 39 grams in a regular Coke or 44 grams in an orange Fanta. You don't want to see what that looks like actually poured out into a cup. Olipop flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like Ollie Smart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. Olipop was nice enough, Matt, to send us a bunch of free soda. And my greatest takeaway, beyond loving the cherry Coke, clearly my favorite flavor, was just how much better I feel after drinking this versus a regular soda. There's like maybe this is a gross, too in-depth descriptor, but there's like a happy burbling in my stomach going on versus a regular soda where you feel a little heavy. You feel like you're dragging it around the rest of the day. It's just not there with Olipop. You feel light. You feel good. You feel like you did something good for your body. And that's why I love it. And frankly, it's one of my favorite Locked On products of all time. If you want to get a free can of Olipop, all you have to do is buy any 2 cans in a store and they'll reimburse you for one. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find Olipop near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, what's up, guys? We are back here on Locked On NBA Game Night. We're going to keep it rolling with some buy or sell specifically for this series. Matt, you inspired this one. I added to this question a little bit, though. Do you buy the idea that both Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams will peak as top 10 players? And I guess the implication there, just to clarify the question, is that like a couple of seasons where they're in that conversation, not like one torrid stretch where you're like, are these guys top 10? Do you think they have that in them to sustain that over the course of their prime?
I think so. So I think, look, Chet was going to win DPOY, right? He was going to, like, if he hadn't gotten hurt, he wins DPOY. I think he wins it over Wemby. Like, that's how dominant he was defensively to start the season. He's insane on that end, and he's proving it even in game 4 where, like I said, they go to the switch. His ability to shut down guards on the perimeter, that's so valuable for a big like that who can also protect the rim. His offensive game gets better every single year. He's going to get that 3-pointer down, and when that does, it's like he can stretch you out. He can drive off the dribble. He's a matchup nightmare. JDub, to me, I would be clamoring to try and peel JDub out of OKC. Like, I see so much of the Harden situation with him. They're not similar players, but they're in similar positions where it's like, all right, you got the big name, and then you got the second big name, and then there's this other guy who's like, he's like really good. Like, he's really good. And JDub, I thought last night, kept them afloat by being aggressive, getting downhill and scoring. And you see that pretty consistently. He can pass. He's an elite defender. JDub is so good defensively. He's a creator and a scorer. All these type of things. To me, I think that eventually JDub's going to get his own team. He's going to be a top 10 guy. I think Chet's going to be the number 2 guy in OKC, and he's going to be terrific. I think both of them are going to be top 10 players. What do you think?
I absolutely buy it as well. I think you nailed it on Chet. You took the words right out of my mouth. The combination of the ability to switch on the perimeter and the rim protection numbers, because early in the season, to your point on the DPOY race, I was looking that up, and I just expected the field goal percentage against to just be like Wemby, to be in his own category. And instead it was Chet who was in his own category earlier this season. Like he is just ridiculous around the basket, so smart. And you combine that with the mobility on the perimeter. It is a unique defensive piece for a team with their guard talent defensively that frankly does not need a unique defensive piece, right? They could survive. Like, we saw it most of the year, right? With just Isaiah Hartenstein in there, they were arguably the best defensive team in modern NBA history. And yet Chet is just like a little bit different, a little bit longer. And that is considering that he's played 114 games of regular season basketball in his career. Like, he's only going to get better at reading coverages. He's only going to continue to get stronger and be able to hold up against the Nikola Jokic's of the world. He is so good on that end. Offensively is what I'm curious about with him. To your point, I think just the baseline of what we're seeing right now with his defense is bordering on a top 10 type of player within the next couple of years. I'm sure he'll continue to expand. Obviously, his drive package, his layup package is already really good and really advanced, extraordinary, frankly, for someone that size. If he can get to a point where he's shooting 6 threes a game and hitting 36% or more on those threes, like, that is revelatory. It just feels like there are so many more worlds where he ends up being top 10. I feel like so many different things have to go wrong for that guy, for him to not be a top 10 player. And JDub, I completely agree with you. The way, like, when he gets guys on his hip and their just inability to catch up, like, it reminds me of like the bulkiest, strongest guards. Like, if you can allow me a Knicks comparison, like, it's kind of Jalen Brunson-esque, where like you're on his hip and the play's just over. And then his length, his ability to just find angles as a driver, the jump shot continuing to improve, the confidence he has in his mid-range game to continue to take and make tough shots there. And then just his intelligence. Like, you listen to the guy in press conferences, and I think it is just an underrated theme across the best players in the league, right? The Jokic's, the Chris Pauls, like the Tim Duncans, the Steph Currys, like, just how smart those guys are about the game. And in general, I think you could apply that to both JDub and Chet. I know when they were in Phoenix this year and I got a chance to talk to both of them, I was just kind of blown away that players that young were that well-spoken, and that just like savvy overall in their approach. I think it is really special what they both have. Buy or sell, the Oklahoma City Thunder win over 2.5 championships with their big 3 on the roster. Maybe that's too harsh of a caveat when the numbers as big as 2.5, to your point, with a bunch of teams trying to get JDub with the way the salary cap is at this point. But do you think that's a reasonable number? Would you go over under 2.5 championships for this group?
I would sell over. I would sell. I'm going under on this. I think everyone's putting the cart way before the horse. We haven't seen a repeat champion since 2018. And I
to
think,
clarify, this isn't in a row. Just totally
right, for sure. Yeah. But like, over the next couple of years, you need to probably put it back to back together there. I get it. I've been on the side of seeing that Thunder team go in 2012, come short in the finals, and everyone was like, they'll be back. Narrator, they were never back. And it's like, this is just like what happens. Teams break up, weird stuff happens, egos, money, fate, injuries, everything. It's just really difficult. And as good as they are and as awesome as they are, this was their year. Like, everything has come together for them, and I think they're winning the title, and that's amazing. And it's fine. I'm so glad that Sam Presti's finally going to get the validation of a championship. That said, like, Victor Wembanyama's coming. Like, Victor Wembanyama is coming in San Antonio. Luka Doncic and the Lakers are going to remake the roster this summer. Like, this league belongs to Victor Wembanyama and Luka Doncic over the next decade. Like, that's where this is going to me. And so while I think OKC will be in that mix, I think OKC can win multiple championships. The odds of it, especially over 2.5, I am going to have to sell that.
Yeah, I'm selling it as well. I'm a little scarred by what happened to the Boston Celtics. I know that's a weird thing for a nominal Knicks person to say, but I thought that team was just going to. I knew the luxury tax concerns. I knew they were going to have to trade someone at some point. I just thought, hey, they're gonna own the East for 5 years. They're so perfectly built. They're so incredibly well set up with some of the deals they had for Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. And then you fast forward a year after that championship, and they're in disarray. And there's I think most people would say like they're 50-50 odds if Jason Tatum wins one more championship in his career with Boston. Obviously, that's projecting way down the road, but and like even Golden State, like when they got Kevin Durant, like I would have put the over at 4 championships for that group. And you could argue like in some ways they had incredibly good luck in terms of the injuries to their opponents and like the relative strength of the Western Conference. You could argue they had bad luck with Draymond Green getting suspended in Game 5, and that cost them in 2016, and then all the injuries that cost them in 2019. And yet, like for that group, that was again just perfectly built, very similar to how Oklahoma City is. Like for them to get to 4, like I think it took a lot clicking. So I would also take the under. I think 2 is probably the safe number. I do think there's a world where if they play things right, it ends up being 3 or more. All right, buy or sell. This is one a friend asked me the other day, and I saw some people tweeting about it, so I thought it was a good one. Buy or sell. Pascal Siakam will be a Hall of Famer regardless of the outcome of this series.
Sell. Shawn Marion's not.
Yeah.
Like Shawn Marion was a multiple time all defense first team guy. Like he was on that list consistently every single season, was more routinely an all-star, had a lot of playoff appearances. Shawn was incredible. Matrix was amazing and not in the Hall. It's just these type of guys that if you're not the number one option, it's difficult. You got to be the number 2 option on a squad that goes to multiple championships if you're going to be able to get there. And while he would be, arguably a number 2, I think it's hard to kind of get there with the 2019 team because it's like, look, Lowry was still really good then, and Fred VanVleet was awesome, and you had like this really good team on top of Kawhi. And then from this perspective, it's more of like Siakam's been great, but he's only been there like a year and a half, so there's not like this built up memory of him as a Pacer. I think Siakam's amazing, and I don't think he's getting enough credit. He's not getting like the fact that he's not in these All NBA conversations is frustrating to me. But we are a long way, I think, for him being Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it too. It's funny. My example that I went to in my head was Chris Bosh, and that was when I was going to kind of argue for it. And I think there is a similar template there. Obviously, he's not going to get to the All-Star burst. He's 3 of them. He's 2 All-NBAs. I don't know how many more he's going to get by the end of his career. And just an exceptionally like versatile player, like a Swiss Army knife in the true sense of the word, where like he just whatever you need, he brings to the table. That's maybe an oversimplistic way to put it, but just delivers in so many different facets. I think if they won the title this year and he won Finals MVP, that might push him there, because I don't know if we've had a Finals MVP that's not in the Hall of Fame. I guess Andre Iguodala is going to be the test case, and I kind of think he ultimately gets in. But I do think it's obviously safer to say that doesn't happen than it does happen. So I will also sell it. All right, one more to wrap up this segment. Buy or sell that this series hurts Myles Turner's value on his next extension?
I will say sell. I think it's an interesting one just because like he has had a rough one, but Myles still, the reality is just like centers are so valuable, which we'll talk about in the last segment. Like they're at a premium in this league. And while Myles is not like a hyper rebounding dominant inside presence, he's a really good defender who can shoot from 3, who can score inside on switches. And he's had a bad time in this matchup because OKC is so good and there's such a weird kind of matchup. But I ultimately think that Turner will still benefit from where the market is at And like my understanding is that he's like most of the way done with an extension with Indiana anyway. So the only way that goes in a direction, like Indiana's not going to revoke those numbers based off of the finals. The only way this goes is if somebody comes up over the top. It might reduce his ability to leverage more out of Indiana, but that's the only thing I can really see here happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's been dealing with a respiratory illness. Obviously, Indiana knows better than we do how that's affecting him. I would love for him to see a game where he gets red hot from three, because we know he's capable of that. And Oklahoma City at times is daring him to shoot those. They did at the end of the game. He was well short. I think that would be the kind of swing factor that could potentially allow Indiana to win one more game in Oklahoma City. We'll see if they can do it. We're going to move on to the rest of the league next segment. Some more buy or sell coming up next on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Guys, I am going all in on Oklahoma City in Game 5. We talked about it throughout the show. They've been incredibly dominant at home throughout the playoffs. Outside of a shaky fourth quarter, they've been incredibly dominant against the Indiana Pacers. I think they have a chance to blow this game open before Indiana licks their wounds and comes back in Game 6. If you're with me and you're new to FanDuel, well, it's the perfect time to sign up. You can head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bet. So make every moment more. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, what's up, guys? We're back here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Gavin Schall, Locked On Knicks, Matt Moore, Locked On Nuggets. Be sure, before I even push our two shows, be sure to make Locked On Thunder and Locked On Pacers your second listen, or maybe even, well, I guess if this is your first listen, they have to be your second. Your second listen, Locked On Knicks, Locked On Nuggets, your third listen, and of course, your hometown team as well. All right, Matt, we're going to finish up with a few more buy or sells. Steven Adams today agreeing to a 3-year, $39 million extension. Before I get into the buy or sell, amazing stat I heard today. He's made $210 million in career earnings, never been a free agent, all extensions, loyal king. Will this deal age well for the Houston Rockets?
Oh, that's a good one. I think so. I wonder kind of if the years that Adams took a lesser role has helped extend him, because he had this huge part of it. When we watched him, it was like, oh man, Adams is washed, because he'd had so many minutes, so many miles on him early in his career. It was like he came into the Thunder and is immediately starting center for a team going on deep playoff runs every single year. Well, last couple of years he's played less, and as a result, I think it's actually helped him stay a little bit longer. And we're seeing this with some other guys. Like I covered DeAndre Jordan in Denver, and DJ is not nearly a fraction of what he used to be, but he still gave them pretty good minutes this year off the bench as a backup center. And so like if Adams is even better and in a better position. So I think he's got several years, like 2 years. I think he can still be a major contributor, and that third year will be expiring. And we don't know whether that year's fully guaranteed yet or not. That to me is like how this can wind up being an okay deal for them long term.
Yeah, they found something after the All-Star break with him and Alperen Şengün playing together. That was the best two-man lineup in the NBA post All-Star break. It was a plus 30 net rating. Like conservatively, it might have even been more than that. In certain lineups, it at times just befuddled the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs. Betting on even getting one more year out of that level of production from those two playing together makes it worth it for me. And obviously he's an incredible locker room guy, an incredible quote. So it's a win for Jackson Gatelin and the media over in Houston. All right. Buy or sell. With increasing rumors that the Minnesota Timberwolves are the favorite to go get Kevin Durant and some inkling that Rudy Gobert may be the centerpiece of that deal, do you buy or sell the Suns would be making a mistake getting Rudy Gobert back as the main piece in a Kevin Durant trade versus something maybe a little bit more future looking?
I love these reports because someone's leaking. There's just very purposeful reporting leaking, right? Where on one side, like Shams is like Minnesota's the leader in the clubhouse, and like Kevin O'Connor is basically like, I don't think so. Like I think that's a head fake. I've mostly heard teams that are not on the list. Like I've heard more about teams that are not amongst those 5 teams that have kind of been discussed. With Rudy, so I was looking at the contracts. Rudy's at $35 million next season, 36.5 the year after, and he's got a player option for 38 and 27, 28. You'd assume he takes that. Because at that point, he's going to have to take less just from an age standpoint. Okay, so you got 3 more years. That's not bad because you having a $38 million expiring contract on the player option, pretty good. Like that's a pretty good spot in 2 years for you to be able to reshape. This helps you. They want to put a center next to Booker. They've talked to a lot of teams, and the first conversation is always about center. So I think getting Gobert and being like, hey, we've got a dominant rim protector and Book. Rudy comes with a lot of headaches and hassles in terms of how the guys get along with him. But given how dysfunctional the Suns team was by the end of the year, I don't think that there's much risk there. You're not harming anything. So ultimately, yeah, I kind of think that this is maybe a pretty good fit. I don't think it's a negative overall outcome for the Suns if they were to do this deal for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I think they'd be better off blowing it up if they're committed to Devin Booker, which is admirable, and both on Booker's part and the Suns' part, not a position a lot of teams take these days. Rudy Gobert is an excellent pair. The team was just a disaster defensively. Couldn't stop anyone, like whether it's Jordan Ott, Mike Budenholzer, Frank Vogel. There was not a coach that could coach their way around that roster defensively. The Vogel, in retrospect, did an admirable job of that. Rudy Gobert is a one-man top 5. Even with some decline, top 10 defense. So I'm fine with it if that is the direction they are committed to going. All right. Matt, this is a little self-indulgent. This is something I would ask you after the show otherwise, but we have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to do it here. Do you buy or sell that either Mike Brown or Taylor Jenkins would be a good hire for the New York Knicks?
Mike Brown makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
I get Mike Brown. And Mike Brown's done this long enough that Mike Brown's not going to be insulted by the fact that he's like 12th choice in this kind of situation. Taylor's never had a deep playoff run. Like Taylor's never been to a conference finals outside of as an assistant. And while I like Taylor a lot and think he's very good, he is more of the, hey, if Washington decides to part ways next summer, that's probably like a good opportunity for him. He needs to get in on the ground to set up a program rather than this. Mike Brown, on the other hand, I think is plug and play. Give him a bunch of good players and be like, go win games. And he's like, cool. And that to me makes a lot of sense. That continues to be, I think, the best option for them outside of Michael Malone. I still don't understand Michael Malone and Frank Vogel. Vogel's the one that I'm kind of like, all right, fine. You think Malone's too much like Tibbs? Okay, I don't agree. Whatever. Vogel's the one I don't understand why they're not giving a call. Like, Frank's won a championship. Frank's been to the Eastern Conference Finals. It'd be a great way to get back at the Pacers. Like, all upside with Frank Vogel. I've been surprised that he hasn't been amongst the names listed as an interviewee for this job.
Yeah, I think to me, I would prioritize offensive creativity. Maybe that probably points to Mike Brown. The fact that Taylor Jenkins plays a deep bench and gives a lot of different guys opportunity is very appealing after Tom Thibodeau. I do wonder if that's a little bit like, well, I didn't like that my ex was blonde, so I'm going to date a brunette no matter what next time. So I'm keeping myself honest on that one. I need to do a deeper dive on both. I'm a fan of both from afar. I'm intrigued by both from afar. I think both could help the Knicks, but I see where Mike Brown is sort of the more obvious answer of the two. And that is a maybe befuddling for some people, but for me, satisfactory and way to end this episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. Matt Moore, thank you so much for filling in and joining me. Hopefully we get Rylan Stiles back next week. But until then, he's Matt. I'm Gavin. We will talk to you all very, very soon on Locked On NBA Game Night.